We gotta stop picking topics that require us to read
so
multiple
much
books.
reading. And there were just 2 holidays like really close to each other, and to me, frankly, that's just unfair. I read there were so many books. Okay, we didn't think there were a lot of books with Lucky in the title, and then somehow we found them and had to read them in a short amount of time. And my brain
Okay,
is
I mean, to
just
be fair, we didn't have to. No one
no.
held a gun to our head and was like,
No.
you have to read these books by this date.
No.
We did
But I
this
would
to
have
ourselves.
the opportunity was right there. So we couldn't not.
I mean, we could have not. I'm just saying we chose this. We have no one but ourselves to blame.
Hoisted by our own petards.
Exactly.
Well,
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
I hope you watched Luck of the Irish, the Disney Channel classic. Hope you had a great time with that, or The Leprechaun. I've never seen that one. That one seems a little outside of my genre of choice.
I don't recommend either of those. However, I do recommend Leap Day. I know
Leap
it's
year.
not. Sorry, leap year. It's
Yeah.
leap. We don't have a leap day. Whatever. You get the point.
I sure got it. Yeah.
We don't. It's St. Patrick's Day, but it's not.
It's
It's Irish. Okay. That was the least coherent I think I've ever been. I just said words. Oh. None of those words made sense together.
Well,
Leap Year, the movie, is not about St. Patrick's Day. But it is. It's set in Ireland, and also is so good.
And Matthew Good is so good.
God, that man is so fine.
I know. Amy Adams, I love her. That movie. Okay, I wanted to watch it like last month. My parents were like, "No, we have to wait." And honestly, that hurt a lot. So I'm very excited.
That is rude. Speaking of Matthew Good, you know how there's only like 12 British actors total, and so they all show up in everything all the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I watched Belle. That it's a period drama romance about Dido Elizabeth Bell, and that was one of those British movies that every new character that showed up, I was like, oh my god, I know you. Oh look, another actor that I have seen in countless other things. It was like almost every single character. Yeah. I was like, oh, there you are. But she, as a child, she's like the illegitimate child of a black woman and like a white lord or whatever he is. I don't know. And so he comes to get her, like her mother is dead, and he shows up in her little hovel and is like, I'm gonna take you to the life you deserve or whatever. So it's like you do the whole intro to the movie, and then he shows up and he's, it's George in England, so he's got his big hat and so on and so forth, and all of a sudden he lifted his face and I was like, Matthew Good. Matthew Good, you're the dad? And then he leaves her. He like takes her home and then staunchly defends her and is like, this is my child, blah 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 blah. And then he's like, I love you so much, bye. And then he leaves because he's in the Navy, and then you never see him again.
So they made Matthew Good a daddy, and they just shipped him off.
And then he left, and then he died.
Wow.
Unfair. I don't like that. So you're telling me you had Matthew Good and he's not the love interest? Instead, you got a man with a weirdly square face?
Oh. We don't need a thumb man. We need Matthew Good.
We need Matthew Good. Listen, I love Dan Stevens, but when Matthew Good showed up to be Mary Crawford's second husband on Downton Abbey, I was like, points are being made for widowhood. if your second husband is Matthew Good.
Matthew Good. Like, that's a rhyme. That's the new nursery rhyme. Points are being made for widowhood if your new husband is Matthew Good. Someone send that to him. I hope he knows that we love him so much. Leap year, fantastic.
Yes.
On theme.
Yes.
Just so good.
Speaking of theme, if you didn't know
Yeah.
or gather from context, today's episode we are talking about historical romances with Lucky in the title.
Yes. And we thought there weren't a lot. And then we found enough to read, and we did that for you and us.
And there were some that we did not get to,
No,
admittedly.
there are
There was
more.
one that I really was going to
Which one?
called, it was like Our Lucky Bride or something. It was a Western.
Oh.
She was a mail order bride for two men. Not really sure how that works.
Well, I know
like,
how the
read
fun way
first
works.
paragraph and I
No,
no, I know. I just mean, like, I don't know how you're a mail order bride. I didn't know how they were gonna work that out.
Yeah.
Like,
if it's
whose
like a
bride
love.
was she supposed to be?
Yeah. If it's like a love
Oh no, it was
triangle.
definitely
Oh,
definitely
cool.
polyamorous. It was a
Oh,
throuple,
nice.
but like, I just didn't know how we were gonna get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because clearly she was gonna be the bride for one of them, and then the other one
Mm-hmm.
was, I don't know. I only read like the first paragraph, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. But it's out
Everybody
there,
has those
and
days.
I thought about it because Lucky was in the title, and I didn't read the first two. I didn't read any of the Janna MacGregors, but I didn't read the first two. You read the third.
I did. And while it didn't feel like the third book in a series, it didn't feel like a book that I wanted to be reading. So there is that. I didn't have the best luck with two of these books, so it's gonna be a jazzy time.
Well, I mean, we can go worst to best.
Yeah.
We
Which
can
one
get
was
the not
worst?
our favorites out of the way.
Yeah, because there's not like a lot to say. If we're talking about the Janna MacGregor one, it's called Luck of the Bride. Like Caroline said, it's number 3 in a series. I mentioned it in the last TBR Tuesday that I got the audiobook for book 1 because I was like, I'm gonna be a good noodle. I'm gonna read in order. I can do it. I hit play and then I immediately hear Rosalind Landor and I return it instantly and I'm like, I can't do it. And then I found out that book 3 had a different narrator. Not much better. So many men sounded like little mice. It was an odd time. Um it wasn't great in the narrator department. But the gist of the book is that March, our heroine, is the guardian of her siblings. She has 2 younger sisters who are like 18 and 19, and then she's got a younger brother who is the Viscount because their parents died of fever. And so Bennett is like 9. He was the best part. He was this like really cute kid. The book starts out where March is like in the study and you think she's like a housekeeper, and the Viscount is like firing her, and he's like really angry that she served like ham and peas or something and there weren't any sweets, and then you find out he's like 9 years old and he's her little brother, and it's like it was a really good beginning.
Honestly,
I liked that
is
a lot.
relatable.
That was really fun. The kid was the best part. So their like her diary and her sister's diaries are in an account, and for some reason the hero has been made the like guarantor or whatever of the account, like of their accounts, and so she's been writing him letters being like, hey, we need more money because we have no money, and all of it's in the dowry, and my brother's 9 who is the Viscount. And then they've got an icky cousin. Whenever an icky cousin comes into play, I don't handle it well. And honestly, the icky cousin didn't handle it well either. But she is not getting any replies back from this Michael guy. McAlpin is his title and what he's called throughout the book. And so she gets his signature on like a stamp. She pays an engraver to do it. And then she just like forges his signature on like withdrawal notices from her dowry. So she's like stealing from herself, but she has to like fake his signature because she can't withdraw it.
Sure.
And so, she feels bad about it, but also she needs to eat and feed her family. And then things progress and he finds out, and she's like called to London, and he doesn't really believe that she's in that dire of straits because she needs to be 25 in order to access her funds. There's an issue on the account saying that she's only 24, and that her birthday is not until another year. And she's like, I swear I'm 25. Like, give me my money. And he's like, no, I have to make sure your situation, like, I'm in charge of you or whatever. I'm going to take care of you. But I need to make sure you need this money. And they just didn't believe her that she had no money. Like, they were in like, worn down dresses. It was just kind of insulting how they just didn't believe her. Um, and then finally he had to go back to her house, and he was having dinner, which was basically using all of their food that they had saved. And so the cat literally had killed a rabbit out in the garden and brought it in. And the 9-year-old was like, hey, that's going to be our meal tomorrow. And then he was like, oh, maybe you do need money. And I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, it's quite obvious. There was just, it was like a fun premise, but it took a really long time. The cousin, so then they were trying to launch the sisters into society. She was being a martyr and sacrificing her happiness for their happiness. Again, I'm not a nice enough person, I think, to deal with characters who are just really good people when they just really like sacrifice things that don't make any sense. Like, she wants to save money, but she won't accept their help, like, to buy her things that she needs. So she won't want to spend her money, but she also won't want to take theirs. I'm just like, I would take the money and run, you know? The sex scene was good. At that point, she had like been publicly humiliated by her cousin in the middle of a ball, told that she was a bastard, and all these things were happening. And then I actually really liked how the sex scene happened, because then they got together and they were like, let's get married. And then, of course, he then thinks she's smuggling funds from him immediately after, because she's really good at math, and he has I don't know if there's like a specific term for like number dyslexia or something, but like he can't handle numbers. So he, like, his brother had been doing his accounts and stuff, and then someone was stealing, and she brought it up because she had done his accounts and looked at him for him. And then someone else had come forward and was like, someone's stealing and it's her, and all this stuff. And it was just, it wasn't for me. Yeah, I liked that her name was March, because the month that we're in is March. And it just, like, the title is The Luck of the Bride, but nothing about this book was quite lucky. I don't know. It wasn't. Maybe if I would have read the other two books, because you could like tell who the characters were. But even then, I don't think I'd have an interest. So, yeah. It started off good, and then I thought it was like fine, and then it just kind of got boring. But yeah. Did you have yeah, I know. Riveting times.
That was a lot.
Yeah.
Not really too upset that I didn't read those books.
No. Janna MacGregor's an odd one. I really liked her most recent series. I liked book 1 because it was like the main character in book 1, her husband had just died, and then it was exposed that he was also married to 2 other women, and so he wasn't actually married to her. He just took her dowry, and she hadn't had sex with him yet, I don't think. But then another wife was pregnant, and that was his legal wife. And then the other wife, he lived with her for like 2 weeks and then went off and got married again. And so like he obviously was only legally married to one of them. And then so then he dies, and the heroine of book 1, gets with his like half sibling or something like that. Maybe like stepbrother. I don't quite know how that worked, but that one was a good book. And then the other 2 in that series were just kind of not the best. I like her writing. And she writes good sex scenes, but some of the plots are just a lot, as you have witnessed in my explanation.
Well, speaking of plots that were a lot, I read As Luck Would Have It by Alyssa
Yeah, you
Johnson.
did. Mm-hmm.
This one, it was like fine. You know what I mean? Like I didn't hate it. I didn't dislike it. In fact, it was fine. I didn't love it.
Yeah.
I don't think the style quite worked for me. But what really got me, well, there were a lot of characters, and also the plot was so convoluted. And you get to the reveal of why it was so convoluted, and it was so silly. So basically, the premise of this book is that both of them are spies.
Nice.
But neither of them knows that the other is a spy.
Naturally.
She gets a message that she is told is from, well, not from Prinny, but like somebody working for Prinny suspects her cousin of being like a French sympathizer.
Always the French.
Well, always the French. Notably, she's lived most of her life abroad in like China and stuff with her dad because her mom and her sister died in a horrible accident and her dad was really sad about it, so they left and he doesn't want to come back to England because memories. So she was raised in like China and has traveled all over as you do. Yes, cats.
She's a Rolling Stone.
So she's coming back to England. I think it has something to do with like her father's not well, so he's not coming with her, but like there's something going on with the estate. I don't know, there was a lot happening, and she has to go talk to her terrible cousin Loodle. That's his title, or maybe his last name. I don't know, it's one of those. Lord Loodle. Sure.
Lord Loodle.
So she's coming back and she gets a message that's like, hey, we think your cousin Lord Loodle is a French sympathizer. We need you to spy on him.
Lord Loodle.
So like she has to go through his papers, and either he is or like she has to like spy on his friends and figure out like who of his friends is a French sympathizer. So she has to go to parties and break into studies and look at papers and stuff. Unfortunately, she doesn't speak French, so she doesn't really know what she's looking for, but she's doing her best. Also at the same time, he's been like stealing from them, and so she has to get married at one point because she technically owns the house. Like it's been left to her, not to him, but like he's been stealing it to try to get this other estate and lying about her father's mental stability. And for some reason, this means she has to get married, so she's, like, courting these really old men who aren't gonna need or want an heir because she wants a marriage in name only so that she can go back to China to take care of her dad. But meanwhile, our hero is obsessed with her, and he is not okay with this plan. He also is a spy. Sometimes. He, like, works for the Home Office or whatever, and he also has been sent to spy on Loodle, but, like, to get in with him and make sure that he's got nothing going on, but also he's tasked on spying on her to see if she's involved. But once he pretty quickly determines she's not, they're just like, okay, well, like, keep an eye on her and make sure she's good. But he's obsessed with her also, so he just, like, really wants to marry her, but she doesn't think that he does because somebody said that he doesn't plan on getting married till he's 40. So they just have all of these, like, roundabout conversations where neither of them are telling the truth, and there are, like, definitely times when they could be telling the truth and they're not. And she like refuses to marry him even though she needs to get married, and he's like, why the hell not? And they do this whole thing. And like it was a good time in terms of like they're spying and they're breaking into studies, and you know, like, you know that they're each kind of, or like he's spying on her and she's discombobulated by him, and there's a lot happening. And then from this point, I'm going to just talk about spoilers. So if you are intrigued by this book, because I do think it was a good time and it would work for someone else, so skip ahead to the next timestamp if you are like, this sounds like fun, spies. Spoilers. The whole reason neither of them are actually spies.
Wait, what?
Neither of them are actually spies, because what actually happened was the guy that gave Alex, our hero, the mission, who like works for the Home Office or whatever, was also really good friends with Alex's dad, who was also a spy, and his dad died in the line of duty. This happens in the prologue, and he with his dying breath is like, make me these promises to take care of these people. And the last
Oh, I
promise he
hate
asks him
deathbed
to make,
promises.
he doesn't. Well, this one's kind of funny because he's like, well, I'm dying, so I might as well have a good time with this.
Oh, no.
But then he like makes this guy promise something, but you don't know what he promises. And then at the end, you find out that the same like mysterious solicitor that has been giving her assignments and stuff is
The
this same
same.
guy that works for the home office, even though like there was no coordination. And so they storm in to get answers. And it turns out this entire thing was an elaborate matchmaking scheme because they thought that they would be perfect for each other, but neither of them would be amenable to just like being introduced because they would get bored too easily. So
They had to be
instead, they and
quasi-spies?
basically all of the people in their lives teamed up to pull off this elaborate scheme to convince them they were spying, when in reality, Lord Ludo had nothing to do with the French. However, he was stealing from her. That just came up over the course of things and had to be dealt with. So neither of them was really spying on... I mean, they were spying, but like there was no evidence to be found because they knew full well he wasn't a French sympathizer. It was just an elaborate
But
matchmaking scheme.
But were they, like, spies and they're like, were they spies before this? Or did someone just tell them
No,
to
well,
spy and
he
they
worked for
spied?
the home office occasionally,
But she
and he,
didn't?
like, would occasionally do missions. No.
What?
She, has some skills that would be useful as a spy because, of course, her, like, I don't understand what exactly Mr. Wang did, but he, like, helped raise her and he taught her how to fight and pick locks and stuff.
Hmm.
But it wasn't like she was a spy beforehand. She agreed because they offered to pay her a lot of money.
Oh, okay. Well, I do love capitalism in that regard. So I do agree. I do relate. If I was offered a large sum of
It's
money.
just that, like, I was so mad.
Yeah.
Like,
It's like
it
the
was a good time, but
dream.
there were too many
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
But then you get to the end and they're like, "Oh, no." And I'm like, "So we were kidnapped? We had to spend the night." I'm pretty sure they had to spend the night in a cottage. Classic.
Yeah, that is a
We had to
classic
fight
time.
off people coming for our lives because Ludo
And they
was,
were
in
all
fact, a bad
fake?
guy. No,
Okay,
that stuff
what?
was true. That was
Oh.
him trying to prevent her from, like, getting married and taking the house and
Oh.
stuff because he wanted it.
Oh, yeah, so then there's that
All
whole
of that
plot.
was
Ew.
true. It's just that the spying wasn't true. And I was like, what the hell was the point?
Well, that was like a
Oh,
12-hour
and
audiobook,
the
I think.
reason it's called... No, and here's what really ticked me off. The reason it's called As Luck Would Have It is because... actually, we can... This will be the... No more spoilers from this
Okay.
point. But the reason it's called As Luck Would Have It is because she is notably... Like, her luck is very on and off. So
Mm,
she's known, like, people will talk about her as, like, she has really good luck, but it always balances it out with really bad luck.
yeah.
Or, like, she'll have something really unfortunate happen and then
Yeah.
something really good happens, so it'll be like, oh, she... I don't know, I think there's one part where she, like, completely gets lost in the middle of a jungle somewhere, but then she manages
Same.
to stumble onto, like, the one civilization, or,
Mm.
like, she gets cornered by a tiger in a market somewhere, but she manages to get out of it somehow. Like, there's a lot of, like, she's really unlucky and then really lucky. And she really
Gotcha.
believes that, like, each thing has a... Like, everything has to balance itself out because
Mhm.
she's just always believed that about herself. So every time something good happens, she's like, uh-oh, something bad is coming, or vice versa. And so then by the end, like, everything has worked out, except she's still convinced herself that, oh no, they're married. It's a marriage of, like, convenient. Like, they have to because she's been compromised because they were kidnapped and had to spend the night in the forest together. I guess this is technically spoilers, but look, just go with it.
The entire
And
their entire episode is spoilers. We talk about
sure, but,
spoilers.
like, they get married and she's like, oh, this sucks because I'm in love with him and he's never going to be able to be in love with me.
Yeah,
And then he's
classic.
like, hey, I love you. And she loses her mind. And she's like, no, that's great. The problem is that this is such overwhelming happiness, such good luck. What could possibly happen that is so
Oh,
bad that
yeah.
it'll be able to balance this out? Which means I can't be with you because if I am, something really horrible will happen. And he has to come up with this, like, roundabout logic to get her to chill the hell out. And it's a whole thing, and then Mr. Wang has to talk her out of it, and eventually has to be like, no, you get the next, like, 25 years if like you live to 50, then like you'll have spent half your life without him and you'll spend the other half of your life with him, so it's fine. But I was like, we didn't need that. Like, we already had
Yeah.
all of the convoluted spy plot line. I don't need an
Yeah.
extra like 2 chapters of her being like, we can't be in love because something bad will happen to me. Okay.
That would annoy me. Yeah.
That's as luck would have it. Fun spy times, less fun interpersonal times, and also all of it was ultimately a matchmaking scheme.
Yeah, that I had that one checked out. I'm real happy. I mean, to be fair, I read The Luck of the Bride instead of that one, so like who really won in this scenario?
I mean, it was a time.
Yeah.
There were some fun bits. They were clearly setting up the next couple in a way that I think could potentially be really fun. So I'm really considering, honestly, just reading the second book because they hated each other so much.
That is fun.
And they were like, we have to play matchmaker with them next. And I was like, oh, I do want y'all to play match. She jumped out of a window and fell into some bushes just to avoid getting caught and compromised with him in a library because she hates him so much.
I respect her grind.
Yeah.
That seems fun. Let us know if you read it. This one was free on Audible, you said? It was in...
Yeah, it was.
That's cool.
Like, with my Audible membership, I mean.
Yeah. So you could listen to this one for free and be out zero money, just like 12 hours or 6 if you listen at double the speed.
I think it's only like 10 hours.
Oh, maybe it was 10. There was one that I was looking at that was 12. Maybe that was the Janna MacGregor one.
I think it was.
Ugh. Well, I've already experienced it, so can't get those hours back in my life. The next one I had, it's been on my shelf for so long that I'm like, I just need to read it so I can get it off of my like physical TBR, but also it had luck in the title. Luck Be a Lady by Meredith Duran. This was my first book by Meredith Duran. There's like The Sins of Lord Lockwood that everyone talks about, and then there's an amnesia one. I think it's like Fool Me Twice or Fool Me Once or something. So I want to read those, and they're in this series. They're just later books. Like I think it's a really long series. This one was just the writing was good. It wasn't bad, but again, the plot just wasn't for me. She had been given half of her father's antique shop when he died in like auction house. And then her brother, terrible wastrel brother alert, be-do, horrible. Then he was given the like half of it because she's a lady, she can't own and like technically run the finances of it. But obviously she is the one with the business acumen, and he is trying to get into politics and doesn't care. He wants to sell it. And the will stipulated that when she gets married, then she can have a full like share in it. And she could dictate, like they couldn't sell it once she got married, but he could sell it out from her before that. So her only recourse is to get married. And she chooses a like underground kingpin guy who owns just a bunch of like property and a gambling hell or something, gaming hell or something like that.
Classic.
Because
of course he does.
Of course he does. Of course he's the one that she picks.
I love historical romance.
Right? In the book before, they had like she and his sister had been kidnapped, and I haven't read that book, but from what I read in this book, they had gotten tired of waiting for him, and her intended to rescue them if they like got out, and then they got really drunk one night after that because they were just kidnapped and wanted to have a good time at his bar. And so then he remembers her because he's like, you got really drunk and you were really funny and you were hitting on me, and I enjoyed that. So then ever since, he had like watched over her wherever she was living, because he had the connection through his sister. She obviously didn't think he thought anything of her. She didn't think he even remembered her because, I mean, she was 3 sheets to the wind and didn't really remember much of that encounter. So that she was like sending him letters, being like, hey, can we talk about this business proposition I have? And he was ignoring her. They finally end up meeting, and how it all shakes out is that they have a marriage of convenience, but it's for blackmail purposes. So they have to keep it secret, because since the brother wants a political career, if the world knew that she was married to this big baddie, it would ruin his reputation. And so if they keep this marriage secret, and the only license and like book that it was recorded in is in like his office, no one will know. And so they can hold that over the brother's head to like sign over the shares of the um antique shop. And the hero wants votes from whatever like government thing the brother sits on, because they're trying to condemn some of his buildings who are they're like low profit, or like for low income housing basically. And so he doesn't want them condemned because he's actually a good person. I mean,
Of course he
they
is.
always are. Yeah. And so they blackmail the brother. I love when the main characters blackmail. That's always a good time for me, because I don't like it in reverse. But again, I can handle I can handle that. But I realize marriages of convenience aren't very fun when they're in secret, because they couldn't live together, and they couldn't like be actively like they couldn't be put in situations that you kind
The
of
whole
like.
appeal of a marriage of convenience
Yeah.
is the forced proximity.
Yes. And so I mean she stayed at his hell at a certain point because the brother was evil. I mean, I don't know if he was really like classified evil, but he did some
Oh my
evil
god, if
shit.
anything, a secret marriage of convenience is the opposite of fake dating.
Yeah.
They have to pretend not to be
Not to,
married.
yeah. So you think it would be fun, but it was just kind of like, please get together, but you can't. It was just, it was an interesting setup, but again, not how I really anticipated a marriage of convenience going. Because yeah, like they just had to pretend not to know each other. I mean, she did have to stay at his place, like I said, because the brother was trying to get her to marry some other guy. And the hero knew who that guy was, and he's like, you are not safe there. And then obviously what happened was she was really turned on for our hero when she was at home, that she was like getting herself off. And then like right before she was gonna climax, she hears the lock on her door starting to like open, and it or like unlock, and it's her brother trying to get in to like force her to marry this other guy. So she rolls out the window and goes to his what's it with
Why are
windows?
so many
I don't know.
bitches jumping out windows today?
It's as luck would have it. So she goes, stays with this guy. He's like, I told you so. I do know some things about life. And it got to a point where she was so stubborn and not trying to fall in love with him, and he was just a decent person. She had a lot of like prejudice against him. Um to where she just thought he was just a bad person. She was really surprised when he was just decent, and then he had like issues with upper class, or she wasn't even much upper class than him, but whatever. But then what was really unlucky for everyone in the situation, and I don't really know why this book has luck anywhere in the title. She goes back to this antique shop. Like many heroines do, they do not think that they're in danger when it's clear that they are in danger. Her brother kidnaps her and institutionalizes her. Okay? Yeah. So she's just in a fucking hospital, drugged out of her mind, like
That's
being
never good.
tortured. No! Like, what? And she has to wait for him to find her. And then they still can't even like prosecute the brother because they're still all tied up in this blackmail plot thing to where she needs the antique shop, he needs the votes, the brother's this, the brother's that. It, oh, as soon as the, because then I was like enjoying, like, again, it was good writing. It was like 3 stars. I wasn't hating it. And then she just gets fucking institutionalized. And I was not having it. And then the ending was cute, but like the third act really just wasn't for me. And that was like at 60%. So like you still had a lot to get through after that. Normally her rescue should be the end of the book, you know? That's when you end it, they're happy. But you still had so much left. There was 40% of that book left. I'm like, she just got institutionalized and rescued, and you're expecting me to want to like read like 40 more percent of this book? It was wild. I mean, they basically ruined the brother, because they like outed the, again, spoilers. You know, the end of the book basically was she wasn't ready to acknowledge to him that she loved him, and that she didn't want to acknowledge to society because she loved her antique shop more than anything, and he was done with it. You know, he was like, I love you and you're not, like, I'm not above your shop. And then she realizes her mistake and takes out ad space in the paper and is like, the marriage announcement of, yeah, like her and the hero, Nick and Catherine are their names. So she announces in the paper that they're married, and then she waits and waits, and she's like, he doesn't love me. He's done with me. He saw this in the paper and he hasn't come to me. Mind you, he has a really hard time reading, and he doesn't read the newspaper. And even if then, like, he had no reason to be reading the newspaper. So then she's like, her friend is like, girl, did you think about this at all? She was like, I was trying to make a grand gesture. And so then she goes to Nick and is like, hey, have you read the newspaper today? He's like, no. Should I? She has to wait for him to read the entire ad section. Then he gets it. And then he's like, you announced our marriage? I just made a deal with someone, like, for some political thing, and then this ruined it. But then he thought that she did it because she wanted to protect her shop or something even further. And then she's like, no, I love you. And he's like, what? And then it ended. I mean, like, so
then it ended.
It was like a fun ending because you were like, honey bun. She tried. She really tried. She'd been through a lot. And then he just didn't see it. And then he was very confused as to why she was so excited to tell him that she had, like, because he just thought she did it for like a business thing. But it was love. And then she finally had to reveal that she loved him more than the shop, and she didn't care about it. And yeah, it happened. Wasn't terrible, but the institutionalization really seemed quite unlucky to me. So
Luck was not a lady tonight.
No.
Luck was a goddamn slut. Look.
I think that's my favorite thing that you've ever said. I was like banging my shoulder into the wall, fainting. Oh, the vapors got me. Luck is a goddamn slut.
She is throwing her favors at everybody.
Yeah, we're not doing better than that. We might as well just end it now. There's nowhere to go.
I've had luck be a lady, by the way. I've had luck be a lady stuck in my head for literally days.
Yeah.
So
someone make a remix. Luck be a slut.
the trap remix.
I think we're onto something. So that made these mediocre books worth it, because that just made my entire St. Patrick's Day.
Well, I live to serve.
You really do. I salute you.
I live to serve. I live to slay.
I live to serve, slut. God.
Anyway,
fun.
I don't have any more bad ones. I only have good ones.
Thank the maker.
So we're on to the fun part. TBR Tuesday, our last Tuesday episode, I cock blocked you by starting to talk about my 5-star, just the horniest read. And then I was like, oh no, I can't talk about it because I forgot we're talking about it in this episode.
You were like, and you're like, wait, no, I can't talk about it.
It was perhaps rude of me, but if anybody follows my Instagram stories, you know what.
In that moment, a haze washed over me and I had no clue what you were talking about. And then like a few seconds later, I knew. But then I was still like, wow.
In the moment.
That hurt. Yeah.
It was painful. Sure. Well, anyway, you also read it, but you had a different rating than I did. But The Luckiest Lady in London.
Interchangeable.
By Sherry Thomas. I just, like, that was just the horniest book.
It was.
They were so horny the whole time.
My favorite quote was ragingly in lust. The entire season was foreplay.
That's so true.
They truly, because in our TBR Tuesday, you're like, I can't believe they're dirty talking this early on.
Like so quickly.
And she just acknowledges,
like, tell me your fantasies. And she was like, well, I dream about you all the time.
Yeah.
You specifically, I have this recurring dream where I'm like naked in a glass carriage and I let you do whatever you want to me. And he's like, bet. She also just talks about her like exhibitionist fantasies. Yeah. Like, whoa, girl.
The premise is that she is the oldest of her sisters, and so she has to get married for money. And so she makes herself, she polishes herself up and gets some suitors, and then he walks
a bust improver.
A bust improver. Got the chicken cutlets in there.
Back. It's such a great bit.
It was. And
he's obsessed with it
because she thinks she had a friend of her mother or some person in her life when she was younger. This was imprinted on her. That this guy had a mistress who didn't have any breasts, so she was unnatural in the bedroom. Like she was willing to do all this unnatural shit.
To unnatural acts. She was like, well, if I do unnatural acts in the bedroom, it doesn't matter that I'm a member of the Tiny Kitty Committee. Like,
no. So this is her like ace up her sleeve. She can just whip out the unnatural acts.
Does she know what unnatural acts are? Not really.
No, she doesn't know where he's gonna stick it. Like, she doesn't know what that would mean.
And
so she's feeling kind of confident. She puts mayonnaise on her hair like all these years to like make it shiny.
Bad
she gets
bitch.
she
bad
bitch
herself
energy.
Up.
Yeah, it's the Gone Girl. Like, I feel like it's not traumatizing like Gone Girl, but like I don't know.
Well, she just she does herself up.
Mm-hmm. And then she
puts on
she's
the
not
push-up bra.
She wants someone rich. She's not really looking for like the I don't know, like the hottest guy or whatever. And then he is known
not even
as
rich, just with enough money to support her and her epileptic sister.
Mm-hmm. But then he walks in, and he is this like an incomparable gentleman or something. Like, he's
the ideal gentleman.
The ideal gentleman. Thank you very much. And so he's got
he has a
reputation above proposed. Yeah, he does. It was sad in the beginning. I was like, oh.
It was
his parents, his dad forced the mother into marriage through coercion, and then the father actually loved her, but then she was really pissed off, rightfully so. And then she basically used the son as a pawn in their fighting. And then they both died unhappily.
So he's got like mad mommy issues. And also is a like chronic people pleaser. He's like, I'm evil deep down, but everyone has to love me. They can never know.
Yeah. So
did I get it? No. Was I into it? Yes.
Yes. Because he's just looking to marry a country bumpkin. He's like, he doesn't want to fall in love. He was
like, I'm not gonna get married till I'm 40, and I'm gonna marry a woman with big boobs and no brains. So she'll just adore me, and I'll never have to worry about my own heart. King. But like, that was literally, he was like, big chest, no brains. That's it. And what did he get instead? A woman with tiny titties and way too many brains.
Because they were
Me
bantering
too,
all
queen.
over the place. The
I
bantering was,
also
they
am a
referenced
member
it.
of the itty bitty titty committee with too many brains.
Oh my god. So he
Fun
walks
fact
into the
about my
room.
mom. No.
No.
We have to pause for this fun fact. My mom is so uptight and proper. She's not uptight, but she's like very proper, you know?
Yeah.
She's a lady, not a slut. But she grew up in this tiny town in Texas. Like a tiny, tiny town. And so she'll tell us these, like a rural town too, where like more people have animal themed nicknames than actual names.
Like something like Footloose is happening in.
Yeah, kind of like that, except they did a lot of dancing.
Okay, so it wasn't outlawed, and Kevin Bacon wasn't there. Tragic.
No, unfortunately,
Luck was a
there
slut.
was no Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon wasn't there.
Luck was a slut, and Kevin Bacon wasn't there. And you may quote me on that. Or you, I guess, not me. Anyway, sometimes my mom will just like reveal things. You know when your parents are like, oh, and like throw out like a casual anecdote from their childhood you've never heard before that like shift your worldview because you're like, you did what?
Yeah.
What? So like one example of this is my mom is like, well, one year I told my entire third grade class that I shot Santa. When he came down the chimney, because they're like, my grandpa was a cowboy. Like, this is not. There were guns, right? And so she just told all of them that she had shot Santa. And I'm like, Mom, you told everyone you killed Santa? And she was like, no, I said I shot him. I never said that I killed him. And listen, so
I
that's one of those
Santa.
Yeah. But another one of those things was that one time I said the tiny titty committee, and she was like, it's the itty bitty titty committee. And I was like, first of all, never expected to hear the word titty out of your mouth. Second of all, how would you know? And she goes, because I had a t-shirt in high school that said itty bitty titty committee, but I would put duct tape over titty because that wasn't allowed at school, but everyone knew what it said.
So she was not only a member of the itty bitty titty committee, but the I shot Santa Claus committee?
Well, really, I'm just like
t-shirts.
I was like, you wore that to school? And she was like, yeah. And I was like,
parents let her have that?
My rule following mother?
Oh my.
Anyway, that's all. That she just had a t-shirt that said itty bitty titty committee. And I thought that was relevant.
If anyone
Louisa also.
If anyone in this book would wear that, it would be Felix, and he'd be wearing it to support her itty bitty.
So true.
He'd be to have the shirt.
It's a committee of one.
Yeah, it's like, the shirt would be like on the itty bitty titty committee, and then like her shirt like pointing to her, and then the itty bitty titties. And that he's so supportive of that.
Someday when I have a significant other, if anyone would mind if I could commission them to make matching t-shirts, I would be eternally grateful. You're so right. He is the idiot.
Yeah,
he was so
the founding father.
He's like, I actually want them to be smaller.
He's like, I love that everyone thinks you have gigantic tits. And, like, I know that you don't. Like, that's a great secret to have. And
he was so real for that.
So they see each other, and she's instantly like, wow, he's the most beautiful person I've ever seen, and he's rich. He is my new, like, I've got my, like, sight set on you. I'm ready to aim. Miley Cyrus vibes. And he was also like, she's kind of hot. She's not marriageable, but I would love to fuck her. So,
well, initially he doesn't even think she's hot, though. It's just because she like
her
immediately
vibes, like her bantering
through. Yeah, she's like, you're kind of slick. Don't love that. And he's like, you don't think I'm perfect? Sexy.
Because like he like ignored her on the first meet.
Outdoors during a party.
Meet me on a hill where everyone can view us having sex.
King.
But So he like ignores her the first time they meet, and she thinks that he doesn't like her, but then he's obviously thinking about her, and then he propositions her. He's like, "Why don't you be my mistress? That could be fun for us, I think." And she's like, she's really conflicted. You know, major
Because
props
she's
to
so
her.
horny.
She is. She does not hide it. She's like, I really want to accept you, but like, here are the reasons why I can't. But like I dream about this all the time. Like, I want to accept you. Make me accept you.
She said, I sure would love to fuck you, but
Yeah.
alas.
Like in, like you said, glass carriage on a hill, you know, while people could maybe watch us.
They're so horny.
They really
She
are.
strokes his walking cane.
Yeah. She's like, I want to become acquainted with your large walking cane. And he's like,
I
I
mean, what
want
are
you
you
to
gonna
become
do when a dude
acquainted.
drops it in your lap? Like,
Yeah.
this is deeply phallic. Oh my god, speaking of phallic.
It happened a lot. There were a lot of innuendos that were lovely. And so, um, you know, it gets to a point where she's rejected his offer a few times. She's still like, she wants to say yes, so she's sad when she has to reject it. And then she doesn't think he's going to ask her again, and then he does, and then she rejects it. Well, her other two suitors, one of them was just, well, he proves that both of them are not viable suitors. Therefore, why would she?
Well, he
Well, yeah,
claims that they're not
yeah.
viable
Which I actually
suitors.
loved that. I thought that was hilarious.
I know, I
Me
was like,
speaking. I was
props.
like,
She was so mad at him about it, and I was like, he had his reasons. He made
yeah,
sure. He knew you weren't gonna tell anybody.
yeah. So, you know, I had a good time with that. So basically, um, the last time before they get married, he's like, I'm rescinding the offer of you being my mistress. And she's like, oh God, no, I didn't mean it. Like in her brain, she's like, oh shit, like I really missed the boat here. And then he's like, actually, you're gonna get married in 2 weeks. She's like, to who? And he's like, to me. And she's like, oh, sure. Again, she just does what I would do and says
She
okay.
is really real for that.
Yeah.
Also, the funniest
And
bit is that she definitely was about to become his mistress, but then he
yes,
literally was so upset at the thought of her marrying somebody
someone
else.
else.
While fully,
Hmm.
he's one of those men that's like, no, I'm not in love. It just makes me sick to my stomach to think about you married to anybody who isn't me, so obviously I will be marrying you. Not
And so
because I have feelings. I
and so yeah, because
don't.
she
I'm evil.
um so then she tells him later on, she's like, you know, I would have become your mistress. Like I was ready to say yes. Right, like you could have bartered some more. So they get married and they have crazy monkey sex. They both love it. It's a great time for both of them. But then what do heroes do? They get so scared of emotions that they're
Oh,
like,
I was like,
wow.
what do they do? I fully forgot what the actual conflict of this book is
Yeah.
because it's all just like emotional angst, so it's just a lot
Yeah,
of back and forth.
it was so much fun though, because the first emotional barrier was him deciding that he has to separate himself now. You know, he left the bed after she fell asleep, or after they've
Yeah.
made love several times. He leaves the bed. She wakes up alone, but she's like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm sore. I'm happy. I'm not a virgin anymore." And then he's nowhere to be found. She's got shit to do, so she doesn't think anything of it. Well, he doesn't touch her for like 2 days. You know, he's treating her like they've been married for years and that they're just old chaps down at the pub, not married. And so then she's pissed at him. And so then they like they have this ball for some reason. And
Oh yeah, the sluttiest scene of all time.
yeah, my fuck. So
That
he
was so
has
hot.
I know. Um so he has this woman who he had relations with in the past, and she comes back, and the heroine, Louisa, is in the library or the study or something, and she's like hidden behind something. The woman propositions him, and he doesn't like flat out say no. He's like evasive, but you know that he's not really gonna do anything. Well, then he sees her getting all cozy with another dude, and cue the jealousy, and
I
because
still
she's
get jealous.
Okay, Nick. Red dress.
Red dress.
So he sees her getting cozy with this other guy, and well, he sees her point off to this pavilion that they've been like joking about having sex in for scenes upon scenes, and she points over there, and then one guy, he like nods, he's like, okay. Well, she goes out to this pavilion at night. He has meanwhile told this guy to stay the fuck away from this pavilion. And so the whole thing was that she wanted to be like blindfolded, and it was like from behind, or like she was like facing away from him. He blindfolded her without talking. He thought that she thought that he was the other guy. So he like, they just start to fuck. Blindfolded, having a great time. He's like, wow, this is the best climax I've ever had, but also this fucking hurts because she thinks I'm this other guy. And then he takes off her blindfold, and he's like, it's me, expecting to be so dramatic. And she's like, yeah, I know. I told the guy to stay away from the pavilion because there were bees or something. And he was like, oh, well, that's nice. Which I loved. I thought that was so fun. So then after that,
It's just more emotional angst. It's more back and forth.
He teaches her.
He doesn't want to be... Oh, fuck. They fuck against a chalkboard, too.
Yeah.
God damn. And it was hot. He teaches her math and astronomy and stuff. She's still mad at him, but he's like, damn, I'm really into you.
I mean, there was like no external plot, and I loved it. It was just them doing things together and being horny.
Yep. Pretty much.
And it was just so fun because he was so in love. I liked it.
I mean, I do love a manipulative character, and boy, were they manipulative. The only thing I wrote down from this was a quote where she says, adorable villainy and responsible stewardship. Could a woman ask for any more in a husband? And I was like, no, that's exactly it. Like, he's not a bad person. He's just a little bit a bad person. He's just a little manipulative.
Yeah.
He's a charmer. He's adorably villainous.
I wrote that one down too.
That's all I want, really. Well, we've talked for way too long. The only other books we had read before, so we probably don't have to talk too much about them. But
no,
the Lady Gets Lucky
by Joanna
Shupe is one, and then Some Dukes Have All the Luck by Christina Britton.
The Lady Gets Lucky is like sex lessons. She wants to be.
It's not though. I keep seeing that recommended as sex lessons. It's like seduction. It's like seduction. Lessons,
I actually have sex/seduction lessons here. I think there could have been more sex. I think that's my only, like, I loved that book. But
the title is a little misleading for what you get. It's a lot of like The Lady Gets Lucky. It's very horny. I mean, sorry, The Luckiest Lady in London. It's very horny.
Yeah.
They're pining. They're very into each other. They're not doing it a lot. I mean, well, The Luckiest Lady in London they are, but
in the Joanna Shupe one,
Alice and Kid are just really into each other.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like licking sugar off her finger and while staring into his eyes. And he's like, uh-oh.
I've taught her too much. The students become the teacher.
Of his dick shooting up in the air, you know?
Thank you. Thanks for that one. Yeah, I mean,
sometimes they're like, he goes immediately hard. Like, I read that all the time. He immediately goes hard. And I imagine it just like, like,
there's the great quote and like scene in the book. He's drunk. He's Kit, she's Alice. Alice is in his room waiting for him for more lessons. He's trying to avoid her, therefore getting drunk, and he comes back to the room and he is just like speaking his mind because he doesn't have a filter, and one of the lines is, "I'm so hard for you all the time," and then that's like a refrain in her mind after that scene. And after that he's like, "Do you remember anything?" And she's like, no I don't. He's like, great, because I woke up naked. I don't quite remember how that happened. I'm just gonna assume you left. And she's like, yeah, I left. Yeah, sure. But then she knows that he is now turned on by her, so she is like empowered by that because her mom is horrible. But it was actually a horrible parent that I didn't mind because I thought Alice reacted to it pretty well. And the mother instigated some other things that I was like, well, for plot reasons, you can get a free pass.
Yeah, that wasn't like one of my favorites, but it was a good time. You know what was one of my favorites?
What?
Some Dukes Have All the Luck by Christina Britton.
It was really peppy for
I love
10:39
that
p.m.
book.
It was really cute. Oh gosh.
I just have a lot of feelings about that book. Standard caveat, it's a forever book. You guys know the drill. Or maybe you don't if this is the first episode you're listening to. In which case, I'm sorry that this is the first episode you're listening to.
Yeah.
But I work for forever. So technically, I work for the publisher. But guess what? Doesn't impact my opinion. It just makes me all the more delighted to talk about this book because it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I think about all the time from this book? Number one, bug watching. Number two, the scene where the oldest of the girls like meets up with the other ones and they're kind of talking and he turns to Bronwyn and says she's never had a friend. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
She's 16 and she's never had a friend, because I was just like openly weeping. That hit.
A practicing
16
weeper.
and never had a friend. I was like,
it was sad.
But it was fine. Okay, essentially, Bronwyn is a spinster. She's an entomologist, so she studies bugs. She lives on the Isle of Sin. She just wants to study her bugs. And her parents are like, absolutely not. You're going to need to get married, and he's going to need to have a title. So they start, like, getting rid of her equipment, basically, and are, like, restricting her freedoms until she can get married, even though she doesn't want to get married, as parents are wont to do in historical romance. He, meanwhile, is a duke. He happens to own a gambling hell. That's not super important. It just is a fact. He just happens to own a gambling hell. And he also has these 3 girls that are his wards, which have a connection to him. What is that connection?
Who knows?
But he has a connection. And he is determined not to be too close to them for personal reasons. He's like, nope, can't get super involved. So he basically puts them in his house and then, like, lives at his club. Like, he does not interact with these girls, which isn't great.
No.
For these children.
No,
because it's like a 16-year-old girl and 2 that are younger. I don't remember exactly how young, but like 8 and 9 or
9 and 10,
8,
I think.
9 and 10, something like that. Yeah. So they cause a lot of problems. The most recent of the problems is that the younger 2, because the younger 2 don't get along with the oldest one, #relatable, the younger 2 have run away. And they figure out pretty quickly that they've gone to the Isle of Sin because that's where his mother is from, and they, like, found her diary or whatever. So he goes to get them, and he finds them in the house, and they have befriended Bronwyn already. And so he is like, perfect. I need somebody to be the mom to these children so that I can stop dealing with them. As you do. Just need a woman to take care of him. Might as well be my wife. He's a
hot
dude,
and ready
so
young
wife anyway. And he's like, how about you? They already know you. I need a wife. And she's like, well, I do need a husband to get my parents off my goddamn back. So fair enough. So they agree to this marriage of convenience that nobody else knows is a marriage of convenience. It's just them. They have to convince everyone that it's not a marriage of convenience because she will be mad embarrassed if he marries her and then leaves the next day. So she's
much
like,
more
fine.
fun than secret marriage of convenience.
Yeah, it's much more fun. So she's like, well, you have to stay with me for a week and you have to actually spend time with me and the girls. And he's like,
inside my body.
And she's like, also, I'm a scientist and like a biologist, and so obviously we have to consummate the marriage because I've learned all about other animals' mating habits. I would like to know ours. And he, like, chokes on his spit and then is like, boing, absolutely. So, boing. Because they're also really into each other. Like,
this is also a very horny book.
They are very horny. Not super steamy, but very horny. They spend a week together. It becomes immediately apparent to Bronwyn, anyway, that these girls need a family, and he loves them and also needs a family. Basically, she's like, you guys are all dumb. you all need each other.
Yeah.
So she, like, arranges all this time for them to spend together in between getting dick down, as you do.
Dick down in the Isle of Sin.
Exactly. And so they spend a whole bunch of wholesome time together, and, you know, then the third act happens, etc., etc. But the point is that it's basically a found family and a marriage of convenience, where she's like, hang on, let me bring these dumb mother together, because they are too stupid to realize that all they need is each other, because we're a family. And it's so cute.
Yeah. The family relationships hit so hard. Because the girls just think that he hates them, like, because he isn't around and he doesn't want to be around for their well-being. He thinks that he's doing the best job by not being around, but they just assume that he is really inconvenienced by them. And so then when he starts hanging out with them, they're like, wow, he's finally, like, he loves us and this is really good. And there's like a gutting line where the younger sister thinks that she's the reason why he leaves, because he gets scared of emotions and flees to London. And she, like, blames herself, and he somehow finds her journal and reads that, and he's feeling real bad about himself, because he should, because it was just really sad, because then the Regina, the oldest of his wards, she had to tell him that the two sisters had run away, so then they were really angry at her. So then they had to repair their relationship, and then she was mistrustful of Bronwyn, but then they had a really sweet relationship. And then when Ash leaves, Regina then, like, attaches to Bronwyn, and it was so heartwarming. And meanwhile, you're, like, really angry.
By the way,
you did? Ugh.
Yeah, because he leaves because he feels emotions, and he's like, no, we can't have that. And then he finds her journal of the whole, like, she's literally documenting, like, all the things they did together.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, because first we have Ash was wonderful at finding fairy coins. I did not tell him, but I made a wish on each coin we found that he might stay with us, that we were a real family. Maybe if I wish on enough fairy coins, it might come true. This is when they were on the beach collecting little stones together. And then another entry that reads, Miss Mary, Ash is leaving. Maybe I wished on the fairy stones wrong. I must have done something wrong to make him not want us any longer.
I mean, that's what Christina Britton does, though.
Dare I say, it will rip your heart out of your chest.
Yeah.
Present it to you and say, what if you had these young girls who think that they did something wrong and chased you away and are utterly gutted by it because they love you very much? Stop! I can't.
Well, because how many of Christina's other books have you read? I know you read book 1. Did you read 2 or 3?
I only read the other one.
Book 3, I mean, all of the books are very emotional. She's a very emotional writer. Again, this is the highest of steam of the 4 of them. But book 3, he's like a virgin wounded war hero, and she I don't know if she was ruined or if I think she was a widow, and there was just so many emotions in that fucking book. It wrecked me. It was a Duke worth fighting for. So in the background you're singing Mulan, but then you're sobbing. It was a really emotionally packed.
Like, sometimes you just have to sing Mulan and sob.
He's like, oh, make a man out of you.
So we have the trap remix of Luck Be a Lady called Luck Be a Slut, and then we also, on the opposite end, have the, like, slowed down, reverb, depressed version
of a girl worth fighting for.
Or, yeah.
Well, technically it's a girl worth fighting for, but I always think of I'll Make a Man Out of You. So just a full remix of the entire album, honestly. Every song on that album slaps. This one is just a slight tapping just incessantly at your heart. And it hurt. But it was so good. All of the books.
One of these days we're going to get around to recording that Kids in Historical Romance episode.
Oh my,
that we were going to do pre
yeah, we're gonna have to do it in parts, because
we have to just choose our favorites, Hannah. We cannot do multiple parts.
But then you've got Lord of Scoundrels. There are so many tests. There are so many. Chasing Cassandra.
Lord of Scoundrels is so good.
It's so hard to choose. And also, I just love marriages of convenience that aren't we're gonna be a marriage in name only, but it's actually we're gonna
Do it for
take
science.
advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing it for science. We're doing it for our country. Yeah. Yeah. That's what we got
That's
for
it.
you. Mm-hmm.
So, hopefully you feel lucky. We got lucky some of the time. Maybe you're gonna get, well, that feels like a weird thing to wish you.
I just hope luck finds you in whatever format, you know.
I hope that luck is a lady for you and not a slut.
I kind of want luck to be a little slut for me. That sounds
no, because if luck is a slut, she's going around throwing her favors at everybody. You're like, bitch, what happened to loyalty?
I want to be the only. Yeah.
I want to be the only man in your life, luck. Reformed rake-ass luck.
I feel like there's some historical romance from the 80s where the heroine's named Luck or Lucky, and she's some metaphor for all this different shit.
She's a metaphor.
Or what's that? What Elizabeth Hoyt does? She's got like the allegories.
Oh, name is destiny.
Like, yeah, yeah. So her name's Lucky, and got all this shit going on.
All right, noted. Slut. I'm gonna write when inevitably I write my bad historical romance. This isn't happening anytime in the near future, but when it does inevitably happen, one of them will be about a heroine named Lucky, and she will be so unlucky until she isn't,
and she won't trust it. And what will happen?
No,
who knows?
Guess you'll have to read it and find out. Caroline's Unnamed Historical Romance coming at you in 2037.
Oddly specific.
It was just the first year I thought of that was not in the 2020s. Watch. What if I actually published a book in 2037? Wouldn't that be wild?
It would be.
If you're listening to this in 2037 as I'm publishing a book, just know my mind is blown.
That some would say it's destiny, some would say it's fate. I'd say it's luck.
Okay. It does remind I should just keep saying random years as the year when I publish a book so that inevitably you'll be right.
A broken clock is right twice.
I did used to do this bit where every time I went on a date, I would text my friends and be like, I think he's the one. Just so that, even if I didn't think he was, just so that and I told them, I was like, so that way at our future wedding, you'll have the screenshots to prove that I knew immediately. And my best friend Phoenix was like, I'm going to save this conversation where you tell me right now you're going to say this after every date, and I'm going to show that at your wedding. So...
okay, so there are two things to know about Caroline. One, she does that. Two, her nightmare is the Phantom of the Opera.
Well, now it's not a nightmare.
Now it's an erotic dream.
No, I have always and always will be a Raoul girly.
A who?
We stan Raoul, the Vicomte de Charny.
I thought you said Rowley from Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Oh, no, I never read or watched any of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
We have so many differing cultural touch points.
I love this for us. Raoul, the Vicomte de Charny, who marries Christine Daae from the Phantom of the Opera. I have always been a Raoul girly. Rest in peace, Eric. Also, we don't recognize Love Never Dies in this house.
I don't either.
If you didn't know, there's a sequel to the Phantom of the Opera called Love Never Dies.
No.
It's wild. It takes place in Coney Island. Christine's child is actually the Phantom's. It's a whole thing. It's not good, although I will say the title song, Love Never Dies, is a banger. But everything else is not worth bothering with.
That's great to know.
Love Never Dies, though, sung by Ramin Karimloo. Listen. Or actually, I think Corey Cott does a cover of it. Listen, my musical theater years, they're jumping out.
You're a practicing musical theater kid. Mm-hmm.
Just wait till part 2 of my musical theater historical romance recommendations come out. I've already got some in the wings.
Those were fun.
Did you see my pun? In the wings?
Oh my god, you did.
I did.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
And I did not really catch it.
Well, you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, as luck would have it. So
as luck would have it.
Mm-hmm. Luck be a dirty little slut. That's how luck would have it. Cool. Well,
I need someone to write that song so badly. It sounds like an SNL song.
It was.
Somebody on SNL.
Be a dirty little slut tonight. Yeah.
That's all we've got. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and thanks for tuning in to this once again absurdly long episode
of Romance or TBR. Hopefully you watch Leap Year. You have great vibes. And you get lucky. However that presents to you. So, to me, a giant slice of cake probably would work just fine.
Oh, I have a slice of cake.
Mm-hmm. I bought pie.
Actually,
I saw you buy pie.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat that.
Regina
pie.
George bought pie, so I bought pie.
For context, we're recording this on March 14th, Pie Day, and so for work, obviously it was for work and not just because I wanted pie. I ordered pie to be delivered to me, and obviously because there was a discount, if I spent a certain amount of money, I had to spend more money to get said discount. So I ordered other baked goods, including, by the way, lobster tails. The most phallic of pastries.
That's a pastry? I thought you just ordered some lobster.
No. Or is that not what they're called? I think it is. Lobster tails?
Bear claws?
No. No.
I don't know what a lobster claw is.
I'm right. It's like a lobster tail. Well, it's shaped like a lobster tail, but it's like flaky pastry. The thing is that by shaped like a lobster tail, what I mean is very phallic. So I pulled that out and was like, well, that's phallic. And then it's also cream-filled. So you bite into the phallic-shaped item, and you're hit with white cream, and you're like, well, here we are.
Caroline got lucky with a lobster tail.
I sure did. It was delicious.